Oh, hi. Didn't see you there while reading this history book. In this book, it says that 300 years ago, if you had anything from malaria to just feeling a bit down, to depression, to hurting your knee, you should eat a boiled egg with pepper and some beer. Now that's obviously pretty shitty advice when it comes to medicine, but I think that when we look at how we do recruitment today, future generations are gonna laugh at us just as we are laughing to those poor peasants 400 years ago. In the year of 2223, a super intelligent AI will find you the perfect partner and the perfect leader for your company. But for now, we do silly things as podcasting. So if you listen to this episode, you will understand how me and Eric, the founder of Great, are trying to found a leader. And it's gonna be quite obvious. We are not quite sure what we are doing. See you in there. All right. Good morning, Eric. How are you today?
Good morning, Jimmy. I am well today. I still have this rushing sensation in my body from going Thai boxing yesterday. I haven't been there in a long time. So it's always a bit scary to go back because I'm fighting on Tuesday evenings. And I've been quite good the last times I've been there. And the main reason for that is that most of the really good guys who beat the crap out of me haven't been there. And I was hoping that would happen yesterday. And I came first, so no one was there. And the first big guy came, and the second, and the third. And it turned out that everyone who came were better than me.
Oh boy.
So now I feel a little bit like, you know, if you're watching a show with David Attenborough, these Planet Earth or things, and there are always these male animals in whatever species fighting each other for a female or whatever. And then one guy loses and he has to walk away with his tail behind his legs and in much, much pain. That's the way I am today. But happier than those animals because I survived.
Jesus.
And I have my woman at home already, so I'm settled.
Well, you could have been a walrus. I saw that Attenborough show. They have to fight every day for like 3 months. And then the winner, the last man standing, he gets all the women, like 40 women. So
it's badass to be a walrus. Yeah,
it's badass to be a walrus.
I didn't have to fight for 3 months, and I got one woman, so I'd say that's a win.
It's all right.
What kind of animal are you today?
Today, I think like a fish that just lies in water. Doesn't really have to do anything. I'm just floating. I'm feeling really great actually. I'm on 92%. I'm a blue sky, as Shaitan as.
That's
now,
good. A blue sky, a fish in the blue sky.
A fish in the blue sky. That is right. Now, when I was a kid, I played a computer game that was really awesome. Me and my brother played it all the time. It was called The Great Pyramid of Giza. Now, in this game, your job was to build the Great Pyramid. And to do that, you started from scratch, right? So you had to get simple things like plan, you need to get some alliances, a lot of rock, 10,000 slaves, just the basic things. And then start building the pyramid from scratch. And in the end of that game, you were gonna place the final top piece. And this one was special. It was made of limestone and gold. Just a brilliant piece shining all over Egypt. And that's how you built a pyramid in that game, apparently. Now we at Great are kind of building a pyramid too, but since we are kind of an upside company, we are going to start with the limestone, with the top piece. So, would you explain this in normal words, Eric? What are we actually doing?
You painted a really good picture for me. I see the top piece. It's actually striped for me. I don't know why. It's kind of shining out of it like that pyramid in Las Vegas, you know, with a big light just going straight up. So I guess that was a cool game. Yeah, to try and turn what you just said into understandable English. Our goal right now, which we spoke about in episode 9 of this podcast as well, is to find a great leader, someone who will help us build everything. A man or a woman, we don't know, but someone that will help build everything. And that's the top piece of the pyramid. But we want to start with that person because we want that person to help develop the strategy, to help hiring everything, to make things in the way that he or she wants it to be, so it's perfectly aligned with that golden piece that we start with. So that's what we're doing right now.
Awesome. And I'm going to get back to you in a moment with why we want to start with the actual top piece. But this episode is going to be about recruitment, and it's going to be kind of obvious that there are things we don't know when it comes to recruitment, and we want to learn together. But why do we want to do this episode right now?
Yes, as you said, we don't know these things. And what we also realize is that we have the most fun when we do these podcasts, and they become the most interesting when we don't know. So we're here to explore these things and basically understand how to recruit a person like this. What is it that we're looking for? What skill sets, what qualities, and how do we determine if a person have these qualities? Because you can't always see that on a CV, and it might be hard to read someone in person what kind of qualities they have as their personality. So that's what we're trying to determine today, and that's the purpose of this.
And starting from top up is obviously a bit different and something that you haven't tried before. And I guess the reason, or I know that the reason you want to try something new is because you have tried other things in the past and then you have run into trouble. So what is your kind of experience with recruitment so far?
Yes, as you touch upon, I've run into quite a bit of problems with recruitment before. I think recruitment is very hard. So in my previous company, Catena Media, an online marketing company that we grew very quickly, what we started doing was hiring a lot of junior people. And what I aimed to do there was hiring people that were similar to me, because I kind of like me. And that was good in some ways and really, really shitty in some ways. One of the things with hiring people like me is that I struggle when kind of getting a new person telling me what to do who I don't consider experienced enough. So it was fine when I was in charge of everything. But when we grew too quickly, we wanted other managers to come in who didn't think the team should be built in exactly that way, and that these people didn't quite want that kind of manager. And it became tricky because it wasn't a perfect alignment with things. So this time I would much rather start with a manager and let him or her decide on how the team should look like and take it from there, rather than the other way around, trying to get the team and then the manager to work along with the team. So that's part of the experience that I haven't before, and the reason why we want to start with a top piece. What I've also done, so I have fairly limited experience when it comes to recruiting. I've recruited a lot of people, but not for so much things that I don't know, mainly for things that I do know. And this time we are going to recruit someone who's a lot more experienced than I am in recruitment, for example. Someone who will be able to build a team. Someone who's a much more experienced leader than I am. Someone who knows a lot more things than I do, which makes it hard for me to know what questions to ask, hard to know how to determine the skill sets of this person, and hard to do that. The only thing I've come close to that before is when I hired a financial manager back in 2014, I think it was. So I need to hire a highly experienced finance person, and I know nothing about that. They had all of these different abbreviations on their CV for all their educations and stuff, and I didn't know what they even meant. So back then, I got a friend who is really experienced in finance to sit in with all the interviews to kind of help me determine, and I tried to figure out the qualities and personality skills, and then my friend got to determine the skill sets. So that's kind of my experience within recruitment.
Right, so you focus on qualities of the person and your friend focused on skills. Are there any questions back then that you wish you would have asked that you didn't ask that kind of backfired? What I wished I would have done would have gotten more experience and more patience
before recruitment in general. So I was always in a rush. I just wanted to get it done. I didn't like recruitment, which meant that I just saw it as a problem that needed to be solved. So whenever I was in an interview, I really wanted to hire this person so I could kind of tick it up my to-do list and move on with my day. And that's not a good place to come from when recruiting, because it made me hire people that a lot of the times wasn't really a good fit, especially not in the long term, because I just really wanted it done. So I'd say more about that then, more about the patience rather than a specific question I would have asked.
So how do you feel about that today then with Great? Because for us it's a real bottleneck to get going, to find this leader, and at the same time you want to be patient. So how do you handle that situation?
Not well. Yeah, I think I handle it better than I've done in the past, at least. But I'm very torn between those things. I really want to get started, and I don't want to rush things. I think the biggest difference now and back then is that I know of the mistakes that I did in the past. I know about the consequences of hiring the wrong person for the wrong job, and that makes me more patient today. And I still don't have the really experience to hire these people. And so I'm expecting to learn doing things like this and during the entire process, and hopefully end up being much better at recruitment once this is done.
Imagine you are in a situation where you really need someone quick, and you have a bunch of candidates and you're not really sure if any of these are really good, and you try to pick the best one that you can. Do you think in general you should just go for the best one you find, or should you be really patient because there will be more problems in the future? Maybe you have a story or something that is... Yeah. We haven't prepared this, but...
A lot of the time I would say be patient and just wait, because if we have a common mistake that I did was I had 10 candidates and I picked the best one that I could figure out, which doesn't necessarily mean I picked one that was good enough. I might just have 10 candidates where none was a good enough fit. And a lot of the times, well, I wouldn't say a lot of, but a few times with very important people, very important roles, that didn't work out well, and it set us back 6 months or half a year. 6 months or half a year. Good, Eric. 6 months or a year in the entire process, because getting the wrong person in one place actually causes more harm than it does any good. And for me, when it comes to recruitment, and especially letting people go, the other side of recruitment, I've been procrastinating that a lot. So I might have seen, okay, this person wasn't a good fit. Let's see what happens. I don't want to do something about it. And then it goes another 6 months and it just haven't been working out all the time. It's kind of like being in a not so great relationship and still postponing breaking up for 6 months, which is something I've done and something I imagine that a lot of other people can relate to as well.
Yeah, I can totally see that. So now, when you're in that interview, you are mostly looking at the qualities of the person, because I guess that is what you understand the best, especially if you're hiring a person from economics. So what do you think is the most important then out of skills or out of the qualities, the personality traits that the person has?
I think that they are, in many ways, I would say they're equally important. Sorry. But I believe that skills is something that you can learn. So you can develop those more easily than you can develop personal traits. So if someone doesn't know enough finance for a role, but they have the perfect qualities as a person for this role, and one of those qualities might be curiosity, then I wouldn't worry as much about that they are slightly underqualified from a skill set perspective, because the curiosity and the determination will solve that. However, if it's the other way around, they might know the they might have the perfect skill sets, but they are not trustworthy, or they are not emotionally intelligent or empathetic. Those are things that, sure, you can probably learn them if you really put your mind to it, but it's a lot trickier to learn. So I would say that they are equally important in many ways, but one is harder to learn than the other. What do you think about this? What would you say?
I agree with that, and I think in similar ways. And when it comes to grade, then I'm more torn, because yes, of course we want the right personality traits, but then again, this is a person that needs to be able to go in and have the skill set to start building a product right away. Am I understanding that right?
Yes.
So here the skill sets are then very necessary. So are you thinking in similar ways for this great leader that we're looking to hire?
In similar, I don't understand the question really.
As the way you defined it before. Before you said that you can develop skills, but it's harder to develop the personality traits.
Yeah, I'm still on the same here, where qualities will outweigh skills in many ways. I would say skills are still very important. So it's not like just because the qualities. The danger with that is that I've been in interviews where I really like the person and really want to hire the person because it's a cool dude, and there might not be qualified, and I've done mistakes like that in the past as well, hiring of likability rather than anything else, which just makes it even harder to move on from that, break up that relationship, so to say, later on. So yeah, we really want to find someone who's got both. So it's not the one or the other. But if I have to pick one or the other, I would go with qualities over skill sets, because I believe it scales better. If this person has great qualities, they will hopefully be good at recruiting people with the right skill sets down the line. And if they are not good with people, they will not be able to build a team that can master whatever the tasks might be down the line as well. So we might lose a bit of pace of not getting started straight away. But since we have this really long-term horizon, we want to build this company over 50 years rather than 1 year, then I believe that the qualities will last a lot longer. Skills will be able to, you will be able to build the skills on the way.
Yeah, on that kind of time frame, that makes a lot more sense. Now, I want to go in and talk about what qualities we're talking about and what skills we're talking about. But first, I want to highlight that the reason we're doing this episode is, yeah, you do have a lot of experience, and you're talking from experience now, but we want to highlight that we're actually trying to map out what we don't know about recruitment, and that is quite a bit. So we're going to be speculating from moving forward here about how can you ask questions and how can you find out if a person have these kind of qualities. But if you're listening right now, maybe if you're even the one looking for this role, please help us out. We would love an email to podcast@great.com and help us become more enlightened in the area of recruitment. So, what would you say?
I love what you say there about asking the specific candidate to help us. I actually did that yesterday. So we have a few candidates that I'm talking to about this role, and we haven't even got to an interview phase with those, but we're starting. And I've actually asked this exact same question. Hey, I believe you know more about recruitment than I do, and I know it's weird to ask a candidate these kinds of questions, but do you mind if I do? And he's like, yeah, sure, go ahead. So I've sent a long list of questions like how to recruit for this. How would you recruit for this kind of role? What qualities would you be looking for? What skills would you be looking for? What kind of questions would you ask to determine if the person have these qualities or skills? So I'm actually in a reverse interview in a sense with a person doing just this. And I realize that that's another upside down thing, but I guess the Great Pyramid works that way.
All right, so in this episode we're mapping out kind of what we don't know yet, and then in the weeks moving forward, I know you have a lot of meetings planned with people who have done similar recruitments before. So we're looking to do a follow-up episode on this episode where hopefully we'll be a bit more enlightened in this area. But What would you say are the main things that you are not aware of at this point when it comes to recruitment?
My biggest challenge with this role is that we want someone who's very technically skilled, and I am not technically skilled, so I have a very hard time determining what do we actually need in terms of skill sets to make this happen. So that's something. I have another meeting today with a friend who is very profound in terms of building products, and that's the thing. So I want to understand this. Like, I don't even know what questions to ask. I'm very, very basic in terms of my technical skill level. I cannot code. I cannot do anything really fancy. I do know how to blow in the game before I put it down in my Nintendo 64. But that's pretty much the limitations of my technical skills. Which means it's really hard to hire someone who I'm hoping to be amazing at these things, and trying to determine that. So that's where I struggle the most, I would say. And I'm not sure how to do that other than asking people. So we'll see. I might have other friends sitting in on these interviews as well and helping me figure it out, and just asking whoever I can for help with whatever it might be.
So this is an area then where asking for help becomes very important. And also having a network in place, which I know you focus a lot on.
Yeah, I think asking for help is essential in more or less every aspect of life. And it's a skill that I've realized that I've had and that I'm very proud of. And I've also realized that asking for help is actually paying someone a compliment. It says that I value your opinion, you're important to me, and that's a beautiful way of paying someone a compliment. So yeah, I'm asking a lot of people for help, and I'm very happy that I do.
Asking for help is paying someone a compliment. I like that way of looking at things.
Yeah,
good quote.
Yeah,
so
quote me on this one.
I feel ready to move on to talk about what kind of qualities we're looking for. Do you want to add something on the previous topic, or are you ready to move on?
No, I think that we've touched upon everything I had in mind and a few other things. So yeah, please tell me, what would you say are the most important quality for a leader?
To me, the first one that comes to mind is trustworthiness.
Yeah, that's an important one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I know we spoke about this earlier this week, and you actually questioned the trustworthiness of me as a leader. Would you want to share that part?
Yes. Let me think about the story. Right, so before you, Eric, had made a promise to our team that you would donate €1 million every year to Great until Great can make €1 million in profits. And about 2 weeks ago, you realized that you had lost a lot of money on the stock market. You had lost about €40 million, which is about half your net worth. And that was really tough on you, I could tell. And at the same time, you were looking to buy a house, and you didn't know if you wanted to buy that house. So during 2 days, you first told me and Spirit, another guy that is working at Great, and said, guys, I'm not going to want to keep the promise of €1 million. So instead, we're going to make a smaller donation, or it will be that I'm matching the donations of the team somehow. So you took back something you said that you would do. And when it came to the house, because the idea was that you were going to buy a house and then I was going to rent it together with a friend. And you said, we were talking about how this would work in my sofa in Stockholm. And we were sitting there, candles lit, talking about the future. And you said, well, I'm going to want the house. I'm going to well, I'm gonna buy the house regardless of what the price is. So if it becomes 1 million or 1.2 or 1.4, it doesn't matter. If I want it, I'm gonna get it. And but 2 days later, there was an auction for the house, and you bid 1.1 million, and someone bid 1.3 or something, 1.2, I mean. So you got outbidded, and I know that you actually didn't really want this house, because it had to be, the house was in bad shape, so everything would have to be redone, and you didn't want the hassle. So when you got outbidden unexpectedly, that was a reason for you to get out of buying this house. And those two things happened kind of in the same time. And so now you said you were going to donate 1 million, now you're taking that back. You said the words, I will buy the house regardless of the price. And then 2 days later you're saying, well, someone bid too much money, I'm not going to buy the house. And then to me, everything you say regarding money makes no sense anymore. So for example, I know you have told me many times that most of the money that I have will be donated to charity at some point. So for example, I'm donating 10% of my salaries to Great right now. Well, I'm taking less salaries. And since Great is donating, that will go to charity. But right now, Great is not donating. So that money is basically going to you, the richest person that I know. And that has been okay, because you have said, I will donate most of my money at some point anyway. But now I'm here, okay. Does that even make any sense right now? And does anything Eric says when it comes to money, how much does that mean? And it just hurt me to see how much those two promises just undermined my trust to you. And I brought this up to you yesterday, not as a employee wanting security, or I totally understand why you did all of these things. I would have done the same. But for someone that is going to get into a leadership role, the kind of leader I would want to see you become, I think your word needs to be worth its weight in gold. What you say is going to happen needs to happen. And if you don't know it will happen 100%, there needs to be some kind of frame here. I will donate 1 million euros unless this happens. I've been ranting for a long time.
I've been listening.
We talked about this yesterday.
Yeah, and I agree with everything that you said. It does hurt my trustworthiness, and it also highlights the importance of it.
Yeah.
If I'm not trustworthy, it undermines the entire organization, the entire purpose, everything. And I completely agree with you. I didn't handle either of these situations well. And it makes me realize the importance of thinking before I speak a lot of the time. And it makes me realize the importance of that the person we hire is trustworthy. And at the same time, it makes me realize that I'm not perfect. I can't expect someone we hire to be perfect in this aspect. It's like they need to be as trustworthy as possible, but they're not going to be perfect. So yeah, I completely agree that trustworthy will be a very essential part of this role, especially since it will be remote. So we will not be working in the same office, which means that we really need to trust that this person does the best they can and fill up their promises without even meeting more than maybe once a year. So it's going to be a completely different aspect of that as well. But yeah, you made me think, and I appreciate it.
And I think when hiring someone external, it really highlights the importance of having your word be gold. Because now, when these things happen, I didn't have a strong emotional reaction to it. I could feel like something was off, but it didn't really hurt me, because I know you, and I know the intentions why you said and did these things, and I knew I know you have good intentions behind what you do, so it didn't hurt me. But I was thinking, okay, let's say I'm a new person coming into Great. Let's say I've only been here for 2 weeks, which would be the same situation as if we hire a leader now and I only know that leader for 2 weeks. And then I see that mismatch in congruency. Then it would be a much harder uphill battle to build trust from there. So since I know you, it wasn't a problem. But if I didn't know you, it would have been quite of a big problem.
Yeah, for sure. Something just happened to your audio, by the way. I'm not sure if that's just on Zoom or if it's in the recording.
There is someone drilling something outside.
Nice.
It's been going on the entire call, and I can't do anything about it. So it's been annoying me.
We'll deal with it.
It's been annoying me for quite some time. Sorry about that. If that has been bothering you the entire call, I will.
We don't hear the drilling. It's something with a technical thing, I would say.
Okay.
But yeah, let's move on.
I will yell at them later.
What other qualities would you say are important for this?
I think one thing that has been highlighted just in this example is the importance of admitting mistakes. And we talked about this yesterday, and this is not a story that makes you look good, like at all. And
I look like shit.
You do look like shit. And to me, that is building trust. And someone that didn't want this to be seen, especially in a transparent organization, that would be a problem. Someone that is really struggling to admit mistakes that they have made, I don't think that would be a good match for an organization that wants to put up everything online. So you allow me to tell this story is a big strength, I think. And important for this role.
In an interview then, if we're trying to determine if a person is owning up to their mistakes, would you say a good question then would be, can you please tell me about a mistake that you did that you're ashamed over and what the consequences were for that one?
I like that, yeah.
Would you say it's good to add the art that you're ashamed over? Is that taking it too far?
I like that. And I want to highlight here, I don't know what I'm doing. But I would be curious then if I asked that question, if that person would be able to just, I did this horrible thing, or if they would try to put cotton around it and make it fluffy and make it, oh, but it wasn't that bad, and I did this because of this, and everything after the because is bullshit. So in the way they're answering the question, you can see how much can they stand in the pain of a mistake.
Yeah, I like that. So if the person who are listening to this interview is to this conversation, if you're listening and gonna apply for the job, get prepared for some tricky questions.
I think my main mistake I would make in an interview is that I wouldn't be tricky or I want to find the right word here. Omständig, what is that? Besvärlig. Complicated. Annoying. Yeah. Tricky to deal with. I wouldn't do that enough. I'm too...
Yeah, that's part of it.
I'm too sweet. I would have liked to be more vinegar in an interview.
I want to touch about this a bit more when we later on in the episode and talking about whether or not it's the right call to go with a call interview or a text-based interview.
Yeah.
So let's hope we have time for that one. Want to move on and touch upon some other qualities you've been thinking about that's important?
One you and I have a big interest for is emotional intelligence in general. So, how do you think, how can you measure that in a leader?
Emotional intelligence is tricky. What would you say emotional intelligence is?
I think that's a collective word for a lot of different skills, actually. So I'm finding it hard to pinpoint it right now. But I guess the ability and the willingness to put oneself in another person's shoes and then understand what their best interest is and then take that interest as your interest.
Yeah, I agree with that. I know Dale Carnegie in How to Make Friends and Influence People, an amazing book, by the way. He speaks about just that as an important part of life in general. That if you, I think it states somewhere in the book, like if you're only going to take one thing from this book, take this. And there's a sentence, a quote saying like, be able to put yourself in some other one's shoes. And I can see this is something that I've struggled with as a leader before. I remember we had a really, really shitty situation in my previous company back in 2015, I think, where we changed our employment agreements because we were going to the stock exchange. We needed to change the terminology in them, and they actually became fairer and better for the employees, I would say. But there was one quote in it that got really misunderstood, and it was something in the line of, everything that you do during your employment is owned by Catena Media. And this means that everything that we are paying someone to do is owned by us. It does not mean everything you do outside of the office we own. But since it says during your employment, a lot of the people in the team misunderstood this. And we sent this agreements out on a Friday afternoon to be signed on a Monday. And
wait, so they think then that if they create a pot in their pottery class on a Saturday, then Eric, that's my pot.
Exactly, that's what happened. And I couldn't even imagine this going on. So we sent them out on a Friday, expecting to sign them on a Monday. Well, just a lot of employees got really angry with this over the weekend, talking about each other. One guy was writing a book. He's like, they're going to own this. And another guy had some websites on the side. They're going to own this, and these kind of things. And they got really, really angry over this. And on Monday, half of our team wanted to quit. And it was... Oh. I had a very hard... to me, this was just silly. So I don't think I connected very well with people, because at the end of the day, it was a misunderstanding and they were scared. And I didn't put myself in their position and see how would it feel if I thought that someone would take away my life work, my book, my websites that I'm doing. Instead, I probably just questioned this as stupid and like, hey, this is not what it means, rather than kind of embody their aspect of this. And we actually ended up having 7 people resign after this. I think all of them understood that it wasn't about the contract, it wasn't about these things. So they understood that this clause wasn't what it said, but it became so many battles about this that people ended up resigning. And it was actually the people who were the closest to me, the people I had worked with the longest, my closest friends in the company. Some of them resigned during this, and I realized, looking back, that the main reason was probably how badly I dealt with it, that I didn't manage to put myself in their shoes and take their perspective and see what's in their best interest and thinking of that. I was only sitting on my high horse or whatever saying, but you're wrong. And that created a lot of friction. And yeah, I'd say that during my entire business career, that those 2-3 weeks, whatever it was the worst. I suffered through that, and I can see how much they suffered through that, and I didn't manage to understand them at the time. And I'm still not really friends with these people. We haven't managed to repair this, and that's 4 years later. Just starting from the fact that I couldn't embody their situation in this.
I haven't heard this story before, and it's very interesting because it so clearly highlights that it's not about making mistakes, because mistakes obviously will be made, and this sounds like a pretty silly mistake, but the fact that you didn't have the skill set of emotional intelligence at that point caused the mistake to become maybe 100 times bigger than if you would have been able to deal with that in a different way.
Yeah, everything could have been avoided if, to start with, just, hey, this is the agreement, everybody, let's sit down for an hour and go through what it actually means and take questions. That would have been easily avoided everything. Or it could be avoided with me actually embodying their perspective of things rather than saying that they're wrong.
I would have been mad at them too if I was in your situation.
What chaos. Yeah, so emotional intelligence and the perspective of embodying is also very important.
Do you think that situation would have been different if there was more trust in the company before that incident?
It's a very good point. There were probably not enough trust to start with. And the lack of trust, or the fact that the trust wasn't high enough, made people question the intentions. So if they would have known that the agreement came with the intention, this is in your best interest, they wouldn't have misunderstood it like that, or they would just have asked instead of getting angry and just assuming that this was something we did to control them or to steal from them. So definitely trust is a big part about this. It's interesting. I haven't thought about that way.
You said something that made me think now. You're talking about the intentions. And I know the intention that great have is to do as much good as possible. So how important do you think it is that this person we're looking for is embodying that intention? And if he do, or she, we would love for it to be a she, how can we know that that is something real? And is it important?
I believe that everyone embodies this intention as a child. I think that we're born into wanting the best for everyone around. And children are born selfish because they have to be, otherwise they wouldn't survive. They have to be okay with waking their parents up in the middle of the night because they're hungry. But I believe that everyone has an innate good intention. And then for how the world has been treating them or conditioning them, people are less aware of this. So I think that's a quality that everyone has. It might just be less apparent in some people, depending on their upbringing and so forth. So I think it's very important, but at the same time I think that a lot of people have it. I'd say that it's important that it's not too hidden away.
So it's important that it's apparent.
It's not important that it's like shining out there. I don't think there's someone who needs to come from a charity organization or need to be Mother Teresa, but it's important that it's not the devil either, or someone who is too much in this for the money or too much in this for pride, because I think that will be tricky to deal with. I don't know. I think it's an essential part, and at the same time, I think that everyone has it, and I might be wrong. I don't know. But yeah.
So, what other qualities do you think is important as a personality traits?
I think that it's very important that someone is a doer, just does things and make things happen. I'm not sure if that's really a quality or a skill set, to be honest, but I think that's more of a quality than a skill. That whenever they are in touch with someone, when they get something in front of them, they just start doing and things start happening and things are flying all over, because once again, it goes with the trust in a sense. So if we are separated, we're not sitting in the same location, and someone is a doer, I can be pretty sure that a lot of things will happen regardless if I'm there being in touch with them or not. And if they're not a doer, they might do the things they're supposed to do, and when they run out of tasks to do, nothing else happens because they just don't do that. It's not in their natural state to come up with new things to just make them happen. I don't know how to test that. What kind of question would you ask if you wanted to find that out?
Damn it, I was gonna test it.
Gotcha. It's hard.
Yeah. I don't have a good answer to this one, so I'm just gonna refrain from mansplaining.
Okay, so I'll try and explore it then. I think that this is kind of a question that might work best without an explanation of why I'm asking it. So if I'm saying my intention with this question is to find out if you're a doer, then it might be counterproductive. But if instead I say, tell me about some projects you've been doing in your life, you can probably get a sense of someone if they have a million stories or if they have one. And if they are excited about projects they've been doing or if they're not. So if someone starts telling about, yeah, I did this as a child and this, and then I started this thing and I tried this and that and this, then I believe that could tell you that you just want to do things. And I don't know if this is the right answer. I'm coming up with it as we speak. But I think a doer would give an answer like that. It's like, what are you excited about? And if they're excited about doing a lot of things, I think that says quite a bit.
Maybe someone that have a high level of industriousness, and that is very structured in the way that they're doing things. Could that be a part of someone that... I have a friend who's when he has his headphones, like just small in-head headphones, every time he has used them, he's tying them up to a nice little knot. Does that quality have something to do with... In the dishwasher, he's arranging the knives and the forks.
I do that.
You do that? Oh, you're a doer. So is that... How do you use your dishwasher? By the way...
In the dishwasher, I sort them like this because I believe it saves me time. However, with the headphones, I do not. So I'm somewhere in between. But yeah, I agree with you. It says quite a bit. Or if people are... Maybe that explains if someone is structured and maybe not necessarily a doer, but structure is the sister of a doer, I would say. Not necessarily. You can do a lot of things without being structured at all. And you can be super structured without getting anything done. But if you're a structured doer, that's probably the best part of this, the best of two worlds.
I agree. That evil trash car is outside again making noise. I'll promise to throw tomatoes at it later and yell. But for now, I think it's better if you go on a rant and talk about what kind of skill sets we're looking for and how you would test them today.
Yes, I don't have good questions for how we will test them. That's what I'm trying to understand. But as I mentioned before, high technical knowledge will be essential. I have no idea how to test this. That's something I need to learn. So that's what I'm having meetings about in the next couple of days. Like, okay, I'm looking for a person with technical skills. What am I looking for? What is technical skills? I don't know. I'm looking for someone who is really good in written communication, because I believe that as a remote organization, that's something that will be essential. All communication, more or less, at least the majority of it, will be in Slack or in email. So if it's easy to understand them when they're writing, everything is going to be easy. If it's hard to understand them in writing, I believe it's not going to work. So that's going to be a key part of this that I would never have thought about when I hired in Katina, for example. I wouldn't consider looking at how they write an email. And now that's going to be a very essential part. They need to be great at prioritizing. We are working with OKRs now. We've had spoken about that in another podcast and in our weekly calls, which is objectives and key results, a way of measuring goals over 3 months and finding out which of these goals are the most important. So it's someone who needs to be very good at prioritizing and understanding these things, what actually makes a difference, which aligns with being strategic. If they're strategic, they understand how does this add into the bigger picture, I would say. And yeah, I think I have better questions for that one, or I think that one aligns a bit with being structured, as you spoke about with the headphones and these things, but also just asking about how would you structure a project like this? What kind of goals would you set? This is what we want to do. How would you paint that roadmap? Like, where is where is the next quarter? Where is this quarter? What are the things we're doing? And someone who is good at explaining that would probably be good at prioritizing that. And I believe I would be good at prioritizing this, so I could probably understand the answers they're given. And another skill set that I would never have considered in the past, and that is something that I've learned a lot from you and from Spirit and the Great Team, and a lot from this process that we're doing with the podcast, is giving and receiving feedback. Because how you gave me feedback yesterday of that you don't actually trust me right now, or I've done things that hurt your trust to me, is super important for me to know. And it's so valuable. At the same time, it's very hard for someone to give. And it's often very hard to receive. To hear that I've damaged your trust is one of the worst things I can imagine you telling me, actually, because trust is so important to me. And still it becomes so essential that you say it. And this is not something that I've ever looked for in anyone. I haven't tried to understand this before. I didn't know the value of this before we guys started growing this together and doing public speaking, where feedback is very essential. So I would say that's a skill that you definitely can learn, and something that we have learned a lot together, and that we're looking for in this role as well, which is an odd skill. Odd. It's not something that's spoken about a lot. At least I've never spoken about it before. So I say that these are all skill sets that can be learned, that we need someone to have, and some of them I have somewhat of an idea of how to find out if the candidate has, and some of them I have no idea. So it's, yeah. Am I missing some skill sets here? Something you're thinking about?
Well, I think we covered most of the important things for this episode. So I think I want to wrap up the skill sets and the qualities here and start wrapping up this episode. Do you have something you want to add before that?
Yeah, I'd like to. We spoke about this the other day. Like, what do you see as the downside of having an episode like this?
Well, my background is in professional poker, and I'll tell you, if you show your cards when you're playing, it will be very difficult to win unless you have two aces. Right, and that is kind of what we're doing here, and I think that is a good thing in many ways. But the downside, of course, is that if we want to test someone for... we talked earlier about owning their mistakes, and we have... Okay, so tell us about a mistake you have done, and we can see, are they just putting that out there in a vulnerable way, or are they trying to tie it in common? So if someone knows that is what we're looking for, and they have bad intentions, or not even bad intention, but they can use that as a way to get an upper hand and make them seem more qualified than they are. Again, then that is someone that has done their homework, which is... probably means they're a doer. But yeah, it could be like playing poker with open cards.
Yeah, that's definitely a risk. We're telling someone specifically what we're looking for, so it's easier to give the correct answers. Yeah. So what's the upside, would you say?
I mean, one big upside that I see is that we are mapping out what we don't know here. So we are inviting help from the outside in becoming better at this. Do you see any more upsides or downsides?
I mean, what you're saying in the first one is that we're opening your hands, so we're telling people what we're looking for.
Yeah.
And that's a downside in a sense that someone will know what to tell us. At the same time, I think it's an upside because someone will know what to tell us. And it will make it easier for someone to feel, okay, this is why they're asking a tricky question about trustworthiness that I don't really want to answer. But it comes from these intentions, it comes from this experience, and it makes sense. So I believe that it's something that will be valuable to see and will make people give better answers. And I touched upon this before earlier in this episode about text-based versus call-based interviews. So I believe text is essential, and I think questions like this deserves some time to think about it. So if we are in an interview and I'm asking you about a time you lied to someone, you made a mistake, and you didn't own up to it, and someone else got to suffer. If you have 20 minutes to think about that, you will probably come up with a good story. You will be able to explain it in a clear way. You will be able to get to what actually happened with this. But if I'm telling you on the spot, it might not be something you have close in your mind, and you might not be able to share it in a good way, or you might not be able to understand the intention of it. But if I give you a lot of time to write me an email about these things, you might be able to give a better answer, and it might be a more honest answer. At the same time, you will have the chance to come up with a better answer, which might be the downside of it. So it's tricky with these things. But I believe that in real life, in business, it's very rarely we get put on a spot and have to come up with the best possible solution like this. We almost always have 20 minutes at least. Sure, not always, but almost always. So I think it's fair to do it in text when it's these kind of questions as well, and then have part of it interview-based, face-to-face. So previously when I've recruited, it's probably been 10% text, which is the CV and these kind of things, and 90% interview, face-to-face. And I believe that the other way around, or maybe 70-30 in text-based failure, would be an interesting approach to this, both as in a remote organization, but also in general.
Well, I think the same question then serves a completely different purpose in text or in person.
Yeah.
So, do you have something to add before I ask you the final question?
Yeah, I'm gonna steal the final question for you because I feel I've been talking the most. So I'm gonna ask you, Emil, what have you learned today?
Awesome. That evil truck is gone, so now I can relax. I've been thinking about it the entire episode.
So you learned that you want to throw tomatoes at the evil truck.
Yes, bad truck. Well, the main thing I've learned is from your story about the SEO walkout, because I hadn't heard that before. And it's become very obvious how annoying, inconvenient and expensive things can become if you haven't practiced the skill of emotional intelligence and if you haven't built the trust within the organization. So trust and that kind of intelligence is more important to me now after this episode.
Yeah, I really believe it is. Think about what's my key takeaway. I think my key takeaway is that this is the episode that we recorded that I've enjoyed the most, and the one that we actually prepared for the least, because we went into it with curiosity and had no idea what to say, and there is so many questions in this that pop up. So I really like doing it this way and playing around with something to explore. Yeah, time has been going by really quickly. So I really like that. That's my key takeaway. And if I just summarize a little bit more of what we've been through, we've touched upon the trustworthiness and the emotional intelligence that you said, how important those things are, and that you might not really be able to learn them. It's something that's conditioned and taught during childhood, I don't know. But that's a quality rather than a skill set. While the skill sets can probably be learned easier. And I think that's quality versus skill is something that previously when I recruited, I almost only looked at skills, very little qualities. When I'm doing it now, it's a lot the other way around. Very much qualities and less on skills. So that's something that I'm learning. I haven't put those things into words before this episode. I probably knew it before I started this, but it becomes very clear to me that that's how I'm actually thinking about this.
All right.
Yeah.
So let's wrap this up. And if you are listening and you have any perspectives that could be useful for us, any feedback on the podcast, good or bad, or maybe you are the one that we are looking for, please send us an email to podcast@great.com. And I see you next week.
And one more little teeny tiny thing. Please go and listen to episode number 9, where we're talking about this role more, if this is something that interests you.
And stick around. There will be
Thank you for
another episode about recruitment. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.